with me a special guest because it's the transfer window and we all want to know what is going on with the transfer. We all are excited about Jadon Sancho, and we also have some other questions that we might ask. So, who better to answer these questions than Jonas? I have Jonas with me today, and yeah, hi Jonas.
Hi there, nice to be on.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you on. How you've been doing with this coronavirus and all these things? It's been working from home mostly.
Yeah, a lot of working from home. I mean, it's a pandemic. That's obviously been the focal of attention in terms of, the entire world. I mean, has been affected by this. So it's been difficult, as I imagine it's been for you guys as well. So
Yes.
my sympathies are with you, and I hope that yours are with me as well.
How is the situation at the place where you are, in Norway?
It's getting better. I mean, we are one of the countries that decided to go quick into lockdown. Obviously, I live in the capital, Oslo, and I mean, I live in the city center as well, which is usually very crowded, but it's been a ghost
Hmm.
town for large parts of the period this pandemic has been going on. But the society is reopening more and more now. People are, getting back into the offices a bit more. The gyms are back open, and sort of the social settings are starting to find itself back into its normality. But at the same time, it's still very much affecting how people are um, surrounding themselves with other people. So I mean, it's we're still very affected, but I think that we're one of those countries that are starting to get back into some sort of normality.
Yes. So the thing is, from a journalist to another, and how do you actually, because there was no sports going on for
Yeah.
3 or more months. So how did you actually cope up with that?
It's horrible. All you were doing is basically, and you as a journalist know this, that when you're not doing anything, you obviously feel like you should be doing everything. It's sort of, you sit there and you want to get a story or you want to get something done, and it's so difficult to get that done. And the only thing that you're writing about is people being laid off and events being stopped and this
Hmm.
being canceled and this being, it was very very frustrating and difficult. And I suppose in a way you could look back and you can write profiles on footballers and other athletes and try to sort of delve into the historic aspects of football, which was what a lot of people did. So I tried to do that a lot. But at the same time, it was extremely frustrating to not being able to cover news and not being at
Yeah.
forefront of what was going on, because nothing was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we think it is important for us to understand that because the pandemic situation and all these things going on, football took a backseat. But now that football is back and we are already done with many of the leagues. So although we have Champions League and Europa League to complete, so I'll cut to the chase and come directly to the questioning part. Okay, I'll start. I'll
Okay.
not delay this. What do you think about Jadon Sancho's move to Manchester United?
That's one that I was expecting that one to come pretty early, so that's all right. I mean, I will have to preface first and foremost that I don't have any sort of first intel information on this. I mean, I know people that do. I see the people that report it. One or the two people that are reporting are people that I know very well, and I know how reliable, not reliable those people are. I assume and I see them all as quite reliable, considering that they keep relaying information that I sort of know that they have good sources on. But I think we've gotten to a point now where it's inevitable. It will happen in some aspect, but when it happens, how much it will cost, how long a transfer saga will drag on, I don't know. But we've gotten to a stage now where it's so advanced, and the teams they're saying that they're not talking, but it's quite obvious that they are in discussions. It's quite obvious that there's something going on between them.
Yeah.
And I think that Manchester United is one of the few clubs that can still pay a lot of money for players. And considering that we really don't know how the aspects of football financials are going to be happening for the next year, 2 years, I think also Dortmund realized the fact that perhaps it's time to sell Sancho now, considering Sancho also wants to go back to England, which has been reported. And I mean, Manchester United actually do have the best card on their hands. I mean, they know that Sancho would like to return to England. They have the money, and they know that Dortmund are willing to sell. So Dortmund need to, in a way, try to get as much money out of the deal as possible, which is very understandable, and which is why you also see leaks of them having deadlines and them having certain price points that they want to achieve and all these sorts of things. It's a game all the way through, and when we got into the stage where that is the game, then usually it means that a transfer is so advanced that both parties perhaps know what's going to happen, but both parties also wants to get the best deal out of whatever is inevitable going to happen.
Yes. So you mentioned a very important thing that in this current situation, which Manchester United are one of the clubs that can actually pay 120 million for a player.
Yeah.
But is that justified? Because Dortmund are a seller club. They have sold players at a pretty high rate. They have sold, I think it was 180 million. They got 180 million for that guy that went to Barcelona. I don't know how I'm forgetting his name. Dembele, yeah, Usman Dembele. We got 180 million. They got 180 million for him. Now they want to sell Jadon Sancho for 120 million. But the situations are pretty different. The situation in this pandemic situation, I don't think the clubs can buy a player for 120 million. What is your take on that? Is 120 million justified, or is it a bit hyped?
I mean, if we're going to look at it that way, I don't think it's justifiable to pay 5 million or 2 million or 3 million for anyone, because it's an obscene amount of money regardless of how you look at it. So if we're going to base it in that way, then obviously 120 million euros is almost a little bit
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and I understand that is sort of being magnified in this climate, considering how little money there is and people being laid off worldwide. But again, Dortmund know that they have a huge potential star in Jadon Sancho, who was born in the year 2000. I mean, he will be the first player born. Not quite sure if this is correct, because I was corrected on this earlier. But if he's the first one within the 21st century to cost over 100 million euro, if he goes, considering he's born in the year 2000. But then again, he's young, he's English, he's already proven himself. He's ridiculously consistent in terms of numbers. And I mean, they know that Manchester United would like him. They know that he would like to go to Manchester United. They know that also the merchandising aspect of a guy like Jadon Sancho is immense, considering that he will be playing alongside the likes of Marcus Rashford and Greenwood and all those other young stars that Man United have. So Dortmund understand the potential that United are seeing in Sancho both on and off the pitch, which I imagine also is one of the reasons why they're not going to be budging too much on how much money they want. But is it justified? Both yes and no. I think from Dortmund's point of view, it definitely is. But paying that much money in this situation, will it be justified regardless of how you look at it? It was not justified when Paris Saint-Germain paid 222 million euros for Neymar either, and that was when markets were going great. So I mean, it depends on how you want to view football economics.
Exactly. And coming back to that, now Dembele did go for 180 million, but it's not that he played really well. So, do you think, from Manchester United's point of view, this could be this could be the case with Jadon Sancho, because German football and English football are worlds apart?
It's a difficult one, because you can also point to how much Paris Saint-Germain eventually paid for Kylian Mbappe. I mean, I assume that was around 180 million, 190. I don't have the numbers in my head right now, but I assume it was above 150 million euros. I think it was above that. And I mean, Dortmund will point to that and say, hey, look how much Paris Saint-Germain paid Monaco for him. We want less for Sancho. Is that not justifiable? I mean, it will always be examples both ways. And Dembele, yeah, I mean, it's more of an understandable example, given that he was sold directly from Dortmund. But then again, I assume that other transfers will sort of lay the foundation for how much money you can expect from a player. And then again, I honestly think Dortmund got a great deal from Barcelona, and I thought at the time that Barcelona got a great deal from Dortmund when they got Dembele. But the fact of the matter is that Dembele has struggled a lot with injuries and attitude issues, which he also did at Dortmund. So I'm not quite sure if you can compare the two situations, considering that we really don't know the nucleus of how Jadon Sancho is going to be developing either. I mean, for all we know, he might start having injury issues and attitude issues as soon as he leaves Dortmund. We don't know that. That's one of the hypotheticals.
Yes, exactly. And Just give me a second.
No
Yeah.
problem.
So now I was having some problems with my system. Okay. So Jadon Sancho did go to might come to Manchester United. I think right now, as the deal stands, I think he will. Given the current scenario, with Mason Greenwood playing so well, and I think Jadon Sancho will be playing on the left wing. How do you think the growth of Mason Greenwood getting affected with this deal? Do you think that that might affect his growth?
It's a good question. Looking at the numbers, there are a lot of similarities between the two, but Jadon Sancho is just a little bit better in most of the categories. And it's a difficult one because we really don't know which position Mason Greenwood is going to be playing eventually. I mean, I think he looks more as a central striker once he gets of age. But it's not uncommon for a striker to start off on the wing. I mean, I think it was Thierry Henry that kind of developed that sort of wing role, wing striker role, and then you had Lionel Messi who played on the right and eventually drifted inwards, and Cristiano Ronaldo who did the same thing as well during his career. So I mean, uh, I always think that great players can play with great players, and I think that you can fit a system in where you can have Sancho, where you could have Greenwood, where you could have Rashford and Martial, and also considering that Man United are going to be playing in the Champions League, you need more alternatives. I mean,
Yes, exactly.
Mason Greenwood is not going to be playing 50, 55 games next season. So, I mean, I think that having strength in numbers is something that especially Manchester City proved in the last couple of years is vital for any team. And I think also Real Madrid proved that this season in La Liga, just to draw a parallel. I mean, they won the league because they had such a broad and great squad, whereas Barcelona kind of laid the foundation more on whatever Lionel Messi did.
Exactly. Um, so moving away from Jadon Sancho for now, I think what you said is exactly the case. Mason Greenwood is pretty young. He's still 18, I think, and he will need some time to improve in his role. And he looks more of a center forward than a winger. And Jadon Sancho, whereas he's an out and out, he can play the best. His best game is on the wings.
Yeah.
Apart from Jadon Sancho, if this deal goes through, I think it will. Mm, do you think that there might be some other players that Manchester United might focus on, because we are already linked to Gabriel from Lille, and Grealish. Grealish is there from Aston Villa. Do you think that which players do you think will we need, like in Manchester United?
Depends who they sell. It depends on who goes out. I think that they want Sancho over the line regardless. But I also think that Manchester United have. I mean, we're saying here that they're one of the clubs that can pay 120 million euros, but of course they were also affected by the coronavirus, meaning that they will definitely like to remove players as well. We just saw Alexis Sanchez go to Inter on a deal which I think was absolutely fantastic from Manchester United's point of view, considering that they're getting his
Exactly.
massive wages off the books. But I mean, I would imagine that they would like to at least get rid of 2 or 3 more players, perhaps even 4 more players, and then you need to sort of go out and find replacements. I mean, everyone is talking about a left-footed centre back, and I understand the necessity for it. But if they don't get Marcus Rojo off of the books, why would you go out and try to sign a guy like Gabriel, for example? Why would you try to? I thought they were linked with Badiashile as well, who plays for Monaco. I mean, if you're going to get another centre back in, you need to remove one. So I think from Manchester United's point of view, and they'll know if they sign one, it'll get even harder to get rid of one, because clubs will know that United will be desperate to get that player removed from the squad, meaning that they have worse cards on their hands, and meaning that it's more difficult for them to get that move done. So I think that once Sancho is over the line, which seems to be the main objective, I think that they will look to remove players, and then you can sort of discuss what type of player do they want to get into the squad. I also think that it seems more and more likely, and I mean, it's Fabrizio Romano reporting it. So I mean, it's almost like the gospel. But he's saying that Paul Pogba would like to stay at Manchester United now, considering the situation going on at the club. And I mean, if they're signing him on a long-term contract, is it really that? Is it a huge necessity for a guy like Grealish, for example? I know they don't play in the exact same role, but then again, you have Bruno Fernandes, who's been absolutely fantastic. So I mean, where is Grealish going to be fitting in? Is he going to be a rotation player, squad player? I don't see him as that. So Considering he was playing for Aston Villa, yeah, they were almost relegated, but still his level is something else at times. Um, so I'm not quite sure if he's like the one that I would point out to be the one that Man United will go for. I'd like to see them get someone more rugged in defense and midfield. I'm absolutely shocked that they're not linked with Thomas Partey, who plays for Atletico Madrid. He is
Yeah.
he is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he has a buyout clause of 50 million euros, and I mean, in this climate, in this situation, that is a steal. He is absolutely fantastic, and I think that I don't know why he keeps going under the radar and why teams are not latching on to him. But I mean, if he goes to Arsenal and they're the ones who are being linked with him, if he goes there, I think that he could transform that midfield completely. Because he is such a two-way midfield, and I think that he'd do so much for any team that he'd join. I know he's done so much for Atletico Madrid already. You saw he tore Liverpool apart at times over the two legs that he played against them in the Champions League. So if I'm going to pick one that I think Manchester United should look at almost regardless, it would be Thomas Partey of Atletico Madrid, considering the price point as well.
Yeah, I think Atletico Madrid pointed it out that Thomas Partey is either 50 million or not for sale, and Thomas Partey is.
Which is very understandable. I mean, if they had said we want 80 million, 90 million, if they could have done so without the buyout clause, I think even that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we see NDD, who is a similar kind of a player, and Thomas Partey can, he is a destroyer and he can start the attack.
Yes.
Which we really need because Matic is not growing any younger. He's 31, and he cannot play 50 odd games a season. And with Champions League, I think we need players who have already played in the Champions League, who are already proven. So I think Thomas Partey, that will be a steal. Like 50 million, that will be a bargain. And considering the things that Manchester United have been doing since the signing of since Ole's joining, I think we have done a pretty good job because we have gotten rid of a lot of players who were on the bills. We had to pay the big bucks to a lot of the players, and Ole has gotten rid of like most of them. I'd still like to see the back of some of the players because that can only fund new players coming in and better players. What do you think this entire thing, the Ole and this entire transformation? How do you rate this?
I still think he needs at least one more season before you actually come with a sort of a judgment of it. But I've interviewed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a couple of times. I've spoken to him on a couple of occasions, and if he's doing what he did in Molde in terms of trying to build a culture and build something that would last, I have all the faith in the world in him to do that because I mean he's very meticulous in the way he does stuff. I mean he loves to have an open society. He makes players feel important. I've spoken to some of the veteran players that he had at Molde as well, and they're saying that even though you kind of sometimes are left out of the squad, he makes you feel important. He'll say, all right, fine, you're not going to play this game, you're not going to play next game, but that third game, you should get ready for that one because you will play a vital role in that game, for example. I mean, he's great at creating a nucleus of players and making them feel like he trusts them. Which I think is in today's day and age with people in mental health being a big thing. I think having someone who trusts you and shows that trust in you as a human being more so than just as a footballer is so important. And I think that he's one of the people that has really realized that. And everyone I've spoken to says that he's always so open to talk and his door is always open. And it's not like a fear culture within his teams, which created the foundation for Molde to be the dominant side in Norway, and they've been so for, I'd say, alongside Rosenborg, they've been so for the majority of this decade, and that's large in part due to him.
That is great because see, in our the viewers, most of the people who are watching us right now in Kolkata in the city, we support Ole. We we have a difference in opinion sometimes, but I think we do love Ole because he's bringing back that old Manchester United culture back. He's bringing back that old attacking style of football. Although he doesn't look like a very, very serious kind of a guy, but he is his approach and the kind of decisions that he makes actually makes you feel that okay, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And there is a question that I'd like to ask, because you're also from his country. You're also from Norway.
Yeah.
How is he seen as a footballing manager? How is he seen as a player, as a person in that place, in his country? Do you
I
guys
mean,
see him as a god or something like that?
I don't know if we see him as a god. I mean, you got to remember we are very. I mean, the country is not wide, but it's very long. So I mean, he's from the northern part of Norway, not north of Norway, but sort of north, middle to north. So I mean, he's not. Our cultures are really, really different, considering that we're from the
Okay.
same country. The countries or the cultures are different, and I assume that in India it would be the same thing. That if you're from Delhi or Kolkata, perhaps is different. Those types of people are different, and that's the same thing here as well. But of course, I mean, he's one of the absolute biggest legends of Norwegian football, and everyone remembers where they were in the 1999 final, and everyone remembers that he was playing in that Manchester United side under Sir Alex Ferguson. Everyone remembers that and knows that, and he grew to become a pretty good manager as well in Norway, and he kept winning leagues, and he was the one that sort of ended the drought for Molde, which is his club. I mean, they never won a league title until he got there and won it in his first try. Obviously, it's important to remember a caveat that he was given huge financial backing to actually go and win that league. So it's not sort of that he took a depleted squad. He was given a lot of money to do it, but then again, he went on and won it. So you have to give him credit for it. But I mean, he's seen as an absolute legend and someone who is a national treasure in that aspect. But at the same time, we know that he has his managerial shortcomings. There are times where he's not been able to do what he would like to do. But he's a jovial guy. He's a guy who usually is nice to talk to. Extremely serious, I'll say that. For those who don't think that he has like a demeanor, I've interviewed him after losses as well, and he's a face of thunder when he loses the game. I mean, it hurts him. It hurts him for a long time to lose a game. So he's a great talk as well. I mean, he's always very open to talking and very curious. That's one of the things that you always notice about him. He's very curious about things. He wants to know everything. He wants to know what's going on. He wants to understand a different aspect of things. For example, I've always the first time I interviewed him, I was baffled about how many things he asked me. He asked me, and I was just a journalist who'd come from Oslo to Molde to talk to him, and he didn't know who I was, but he was very curious as to what I thought about this and what I thought about that, and eventually you think. Yeah, there's a bit of humility there, but it bounds out in seriousness. He's serious. He wants to know sort of everything that goes on, and if he can pick something small out of a conversation and use it for good, he'll try to do that. So I have the utmost respect for his achievements and what he's done, and also for him always being quite open with journalists when he speaks to them. And those who don't think that he's serious and thinks that he laughs away stuff, I think that's more what it does to the press. And when the cameras go off and lights are shut, I think that I think Jesse Lingard experienced that at one point as well. And that's sort of how he is.
I would like to know about the story.
No, I think it was on camera when he was shouting at Jesse Lingard during the Manchester derby or something along.
Oh yes. Yeah.
It's not like
that was
afraid of it.
See, he also so like he also has his own hair dryer treatment. His own hair dryer treatment.
Yeah, he does. I've been told that he can do those things as well, and he's not afraid of doing it. But I also think that he understands who he has to shout at and who is not going to take that well. He understands the thing that I was always told is that he's a great knower of people. He understands what buttons to push. Someone needs an arm around the shoulder and to be taken care of, and hey, it's going to be all right. Next game is going to be better. And some needs to be told that hey, you were absolute effing shit. And some need it and some don't. And he understands exactly who to tell what. And I think that might be his biggest, I suppose, aspect of being a manager, that he understands that. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is that if you look at Martial, and that is pretty evident. Like every time he scores a goal, he's like He's with the manager. If you look at Rashford, it shows that they trust their manager. They know that what the manager actually wants. And the last game match, I think there was a quote by Ole that Martial told me that let me play, I will score, and he scored. And directly he was after the match, he was greeting the manager with a huge smile on his face.
Yeah.
And that shows that the players actually respect him a lot. The players back him a lot, and it is important in the current situation. I think you mentioned that he was given a financial backup. I think Pep, wherever he goes, he gets a lot of financial backup. Now, if we consider him to be one of the greatest managers of all time, why can't Ole demand the same? I don't think in this current scenario, I don't think that is a huge problem.
No, I get what you're saying, and obviously the aspect of which club that Solskjaer represents. I mean, regardless of who the manager is, I think that they should be given the full financial backing at Manchester United. I thought David Moyes should have been given it when he was the manager there as well, and instead you end up haggling for Maran Fellaini and Fabregas and Cruz and everything else that happened that summer. So I mean that goes with being the Manchester United manager, and if you're going to compare him to Pep Guardiola. Guardiola has also done things in his managerial careers that warrants why he perhaps is right in wanting more money. So we have to give the respect to Guardiola in terms of his achievements, because he is a proven winner. And when he says, "Look, I need this, and that," it's difficult because Pep knows better than most managers out there.
Out there, yeah.
And Solskjaer, he had the failed stint at Cardiff, which is sort of what the main what the world would sort of judge him on. And then he's done fantastic things at Molde, which hasn't been really that much, covered, considering it's not that big time. But yeah, I mean, of course, if you manage Manchester United, you should be given financial backing. And I think he's been given financial backing for the most part. And I don't see why that should stop, even in this climate, considering that Manchester United still kind of are boasting numbers that are very respectable, even in a pandemic.
Exactly. And coming back to transfers, Jonas. So a friend of mine is asking, who would you prefer? Because James Rodriguez can be a steal, since considering he does not have that huge transfer fee on him, and he's not happy with his condition at this moment. He's at Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich did not go through with their 2-year loan to make it a permanent. And Van de Beek.
Yeah.
Who would you prefer, and why?
Of those two, I think that Donny van de Beek kind of fits more into the realm of Manchester United need, more so than James Rodriguez. I've always thought that James is he's very limited in that he's very, very left-footed. I mean, he's good on his left foot, but it's very left-footed, and I wonder if he can play deeper in midfield. I'm not quite sure. I tried that once or twice in Bayern, and it was sort of sometimes good, sometimes bad. So I mean, I'm a little bit uncertain about James and where he'll end up. I think that it's been an unfortunate career for him. Unfortunately, I would love to see James go to type like Everton, for example, and play under Ancelotti again when he was really good, because he was really good under Ancelotti. But Van de Beek can sort of play defensive midfielder, centre midfielder, offensive midfielder, can play across the line. I mean, he'd be one that I perhaps look at in terms of price point more so than Jack Grealish, for example, in terms of having a squad player, because I think that Donny van de Beek would perhaps be more open to that more so than Jack Grealish, I'd imagine, without me knowing, obviously. But I think that would make more sense in terms of what Man United would want as well.
Exactly. And so now there's one player about whom nobody is giving any, nobody's bothered about. Daniel James. If Greenwood is there, Greenwood has already overtaken him in terms of game time. And if Sancho is coming, where do you see Dan James next season? What do you think of him?
Again, you need a full squad, and I mean, considering Sancho can play on the left and Greenwood can play as a striker, obviously you can play James on the right side. I mean, I would also like to see him try as a right back at times, because he has the speed and the physicality, I would imagine, to be able to try that role. I'm not quite sure he'd be successful, but you have to remember, for example, Antonio Valencia, although he was a lot bigger, he was able to transform to a pretty good right back when he got older in his career. Obviously, Daniel James is a lot younger, but I mean, if he can play more roles, obviously there's more opportunities. So I'd imagine. I'd imagine him being able to play that role, but I still think that he has a role to play on the right side. And I think having I suppose, a right-sided specialist, someone who's going to go to the byline and cross the ball in, never goes out of style. So, I mean, if you have Sancho who's going to go inwards, you have Greenwood who might also go inwards on his left, and you have James who's going to always take his defender to the byline. It's difficult to defend against that. And if you all of a sudden you play 75, 70 minutes against Sancho who's always going to move inwards, or Greenwood who's always going to try and cut in on his left foot, and then for the last 20 minutes, here comes Dan James who's going to keep running at you for 20 minutes, that's pretty damn difficult to defend against.
Yes, exactly. And from a defender's point of view, that would be a nightmare for me, if you ask me. And yeah, since you spoke about
all three would be for me, believe me.
No, you're having your physical sessions pretty strictly, I guess.
Yeah,
judging by your Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned right back, on the left back role, I think Shaw has come of age finally, but his injury concerns has been an issue.
Yeah.
And Man United are linked with Telles from Porto.
Yeah.
So do you and Brandon Williams has signed a new deal.
Yeah.
Now that is a pretty difficult situation. How do you interpret that?
I think it's pretty easy to interpret it. I think that Brandon Williams signed a new contract. I think that sort of stops any Alex Telles rumor from happening. And I mean, I'm not saying that is the case, but I think it's an easy link to make, considering that a lot of people were sort of critical towards Man United's left side when Luke Shaw was out. Obviously, it's easy to sort of, Alex Telles might be available on the market. It's not quite sure if Chelsea are going to go for him or for Ben Chilwell. It could also be that Porto are leaking that Manchester United are interested in signing Alex Telles in order to get Chelsea to actually go in for Telles, considering that Chilwell looks to be extremely expensive. So it's all a market ploy. It's all a way of getting teams interested and sort of forcing the hand. And I mean, a club like Porto, I mean, I think it was it Varandas of Sporting who said that. I believe it was sort of 70% of the revenue of Portuguese clubs disappeared with the coronavirus. So I mean, some of these clubs are desperate in selling players. So, I mean, it could be a ploy. From all I know, perhaps it even is an interest. I don't know, but I think it's very strange if United were to be interested in Alex Telles or any other left back, considering that they just signed Williams to a new deal.
Okay, that block is ticked. Now coming to striker. Given that Martial has been a revelation this season, because previously I think he has topped the charts for Manchester United this season. But I think I saw some links to Raul Jimenez.
Yeah.
What do you like? Yeah, like, do you really need Raul Jimenez, or Martial is good to go?
I don't understand the links to Raul Jimenez, and I don't think there's anything in that. I think that's, again, it's an easy way of trying to drum up interest in a player who's been linked with so many different clubs. And I mean, if you look at Man United now, this striker situation is kind of set until January. I mean, Odonigalo is there, and I actually think he's being underrated. So I'd imagine that Odonigalo is going to be that last striker, and I don't see the need to go and get someone like Raul Jimenez, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised if they grab a striker, considering that they're going to miss Igalo in January. But I think that Jimenez, for example, is going to cost so much money. I mean, he's going to be 50, 60, 70 million pounds. And I'm not quite sure if that's where you want to place your money, considering that you're going to most likely be keeping all of your strikers.
Yes, and that is absolutely true. Even I thought that Raul Jimenez, this entire link up was just a marketing ploy, given that the entire day, throughout the day, there has been nothing about Sancho. It kind of worries me that they might actually announce it today, or the Manchester United way of doing things. They would hype up the entire scenario, and then suddenly everything goes dull. And all of a sudden, there's a bolt from the blue that, okay, we have signed this guy.
Yeah,
I think that is pretty sorted.
Yeah, I think that was what happened with Paul Pogba, if I remember correctly. I mean that they launched their away kits the same time that they signed Paul Pogba, and I think it was a huge Adidas thing. But then again, Pogba was sponsored by Adidas or is sponsored by Adidas, whereas Sancho, I believe, is sponsored by Nike. So it's a little bit difficult to sort of get that done. So I'd imagine it's difficult for them to sort of cross promote in that way. But no, it could be that they're delaying, launching sort.
Fuck. Hmm.
So you are the first person I know who has first-hand information on Ole.
Oh well,
Actually,
I appreciate that. No, it's cool. I mean, it's just. I mean, I'd have loved to sit here and tell you that I know everything that's going on, but I mean, I could have perhaps if he was in mold, I might have known, but it's we also have we struggle. If you struggle with that, we also struggle with being able to get a hold of him now, considering that he is in Manchester United, for example. So. The people that I would ask about that is, for example, a guy like Fabrizio Romano, who is on Twitter. I mean, Lord knows how he does it. I mean,
he's the gospel.
I mean, when he says it, he says it. I mean, it's shit. I mean, I've spoken to him on a few occasions, and I mean, he's just. But I also think, yeah, but I think when you know that much, and he could probably attest to this, I wonder how his social life is, because I don't think there is any social life. I think that you always work.
Exactly, like he's always there on Twitter. Like we are waiting for his "here we go." That is all we are waiting for, and he's always there to report the first news. How does he do that? How difficult it becomes after you reach that stage that people are expecting a lot from you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good point, and that's why I'm saying I don't think that he has a social life. He can't have a social life. I mean, he has to constantly be on his phone. He constantly has to talk to people. He constantly has to know what's going on. So I wonder how his life is. I'd love to speak to him about how his life is outside of reporting.
Do you get to speak to him?
I do have his number, so I do know how to get a hold of him. Yeah, I do.
Absolutely. Shubham, if you can hear us, are we good to go? We'll just wrap it up. We cannot hear you.
We are live. We are live.
Okay. Okay. So sorry. Apologies from me because the link just broke down. Yeah, so we'll wrap it up real soon now. And what do you think? Like, how many players? You mentioned that we are Manchester United might sign 4 or 5. We might get if we get the get to sign them. I
Yeah.
think it is. I think it is pretty certain that we are getting Sancho, and I think it is pretty certain that we need a left-footed centre back. I think we need somebody to replace Matic. More importantly, Partey is going to be your call, and I think that goes with me too. And do you have anybody else in mind who is not on the cards, who is really low on the radar, who might just change the entire game?
It's a good question. Again, I think it'll all base itself on who leaves. I think you have to start looking at that. I think again, to summarize again, I mean, I think if Sancho goes over the line, and I think he will, I think the next step would be to look at who leaves and who do you have to replace, because you need numbers, of course. United do already have that, but the numbers are just players that are not really up to it. So it depends. It depends on who leaves and who they want to give renewed chances. As far as that, someone goes under the radar. I think Thomas Partey is. I have to reiterate that he is just. I don't understand why teams are just not paying that buyout clause now. I mean, why aren't they? Why haven't like 5 or 6 or 7 clubs activated that clause? And the only reason I can think of is that teams struggle due to the current financial situation because of the pandemic. So that's the only reason that I can come up with, and I don't understand why Man United haven't done it if they would like a central midfielder, which has been something that's at least been reported. I don't know if that's the case, but Partey really ticks so many boxes for so many different teams that it's surprising that no one is going for him. But other than that, you have to wait and see who leaves, I think. But if the left-sided centre back thing or left-footed centre back thing is really a thing, I mean, Gabriel Magalhaes makes sense in that aspect. I can't really talk too much about how good he is because I haven't seen him enough for me to be comfortable giving a judgment on him. But from what I have seen, I think that he is interesting. He's interesting in that he seems very raw. He seems very physical and very raw in everything that he does.
Yes.
And that is fun. But that's also something people said about Eric Bailly. And Eric Bailly is sort of, is he good? Is he not good? Is he rash?
We haven't seen enough of him.
No, I mean, no, you haven't seen enough because he keeps getting injured. So I mean. But I remember, but I have to say, Eric Bailly, when he played in Villarreal, he was wow, he was fantastic. I mean, he was a beast when he started hounding players. And I remember, I think it was against Liverpool when he just completely tore them apart from a defensive point of view. And he's so quick and so fast, and it was just wow, this guy he's going to Real Madrid or Barcelona or something. And then he suddenly ended up at Manchester United, and I remember thinking, wow. That summer, I remember, it was Pogba, it was Ibrahimovic, it was Mkhitaryan, and it was Bailly. And I was thinking, yeah, Pogba, Mkhitaryan, and Ibrahimovic are great players, but watch out for Eric Bailly. And then all of a sudden, he just couldn't acclimatize himself to England. So it might be the same case for a guy like Gabriel Magalhaes, who's been doing very well in Liga. I don't know if he's going to be doing that well in the Premier League, unfortunately.
Exactly, and yeah, that is all I need to ask. Just one more question to sum this up, to wrap it up. Rate Manchester United's transfer plans out of 10.
Their plans. I mean,
The players, and yeah.
I think if you get Jadon Sancho, I think that might be sort of like one of the missing pieces. So, and if you get someone in midfield, those 2 signings, I'd give him a 9 out of 10. If you only get Jadon Sancho in, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 because I still think you need to adjust a few things. If you don't get Jadon Sancho and you don't get that midfield player, obviously if you're able to keep the likes of Pogba, and considering that Bruno Fernandes then has had half a season to grow into the team, I still think you need to look at it more so as a 3 out of 10. But there are clear things that you need to address. If they're able to get rid of players a la Alexis Sanchez, Marcos Rojo, perhaps a few other ones, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. But that midfielder and Jadon Sancho, I'd give it a 9 out of 10 if they also are able to get a more of a leader in central defense. I mean, in a perfect world, it's signed Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli. That's in a perfect world, but he's 100 million euros. I know that. That I know firsthand. That I can say. I know firsthand he's going to cost 100 million euros. I think it's way too much, especially in this climate, considering he's 29, so forth and so on. And that is first-hand information. That's my information. So, but if you're able to get someone like him, it's a 10 out of 10 definitely. But I'd say Sancho in a midfielder, 9 out of 10.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you so much. I think you need to leave, and also we're out of time. It was great speaking to you. It is amazing. It is an amazing experience as like speaking to you and getting to know all these things. As I mentioned before, that we do not have these first-hand informations, and it actually helps us a lot to understand the situation, the entire footballing situation at this moment in Europe. Thank you for joining me. A lot of love, and take care, and stay safe.
Likewise. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much. See you, man.
Thank you. See ya.